Bands often achieve greatness by the power of their lead singers, whose charisma and vocals become the face of their music. But what happens when the very person meant to carry the band to fame becomes their biggest liability? Today, we're diving into the tragic tales of bands that had the talent, vision, and potential to dominate the charts, only to be brought down by the one element they couldn't get right: their lead singer. These stories aren't just about missed notes, but missed opportunities, shattered dreams, and the weight of what could have been. The Silver Strings. The Silver Strings burst onto the indie rock scene with a sound that critics hailed as a game-changer. Their instrumentals were a perfect blend of heartfelt melodies and intricate guitar work, creating a rich, emotional atmosphere that drew comparisons to Coldplay and Fleet Foxes. Unfortunately, their lead singer became a glaring problem almost immediately. His nasally, off-pitch vocals not only clashed with the music, but actively distracted from it. Live performances were even worse, filled with vocal cracks, awkward banter, and a lack of stage presence that made audiences uncomfortable. Fans wanted to root for them, but the frontman's shortcomings made it impossible. After 2 albums of unrealized potential, the band quietly disbanded, leaving listeners to wonder what might have been had they found a voice that matched their music. Iron Moon. As a rising heavy metal act in the early 2000s, Iron Moon seemed destined to take the world by storm. Their blistering guitar solos and thunderous rhythm section drew fans from across the metal spectrum, earning comparisons to giants like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. But their lead singer stood out for all the wrong reasons. His voice lacked the grit and power that metal fans craved, often coming across as whiny and strained. Live performances showcased his inability to hold notes or match the intensity of the music, and his awkward stage antics became a running joke among fans. Despite their undeniable instrumental talent, Iron Moon couldn't survive the backlash, and after their debut album flopped, they faded into obscurity. Velvet Horizon. Velvet Horizon emerged in the psychedelic rock scene of the 70s, a time when the genre was thriving with experimental soundscapes and evocative lyrics. Their music was ethereal, with mesmerizing guitar riffs and hypnotic rhythms that drew listeners into a dreamlike state. However, their lead singer's monotone delivery and flat vocal range shattered the illusion. Critics often described his voice as draining the magic from the music, and fans struggled to connect with his lifeless stage presence. While the band's instrumentals hinted at greatness, the frontman's lack of charisma turned potential hits into forgettable tracks. After a disappointing tour and poor album sales, Velvet Horizon's label dropped them, and the band dissolved soon after. Crimson Alley. Crimson Alley was a punk rock band that flirted with alternative influences, making them one of the most exciting prospects of the late 90s. Their guitar work was raw, energetic, and filled with an infectious urgency that spoke to the spirit of rebellion. However, their lead singer became the Achilles heel of their sound. Known for his erratic screeching and incoherent delivery, his vocals often overshadowed the intricacies of the music. Fans who initially embraced the band's rebellious energy soon grew frustrated with the disjointed performances. Critics echoed the sentiment, lamenting how the frontman's antics undermined the band's potential. Crimson Alley's moment in the spotlight was brief, and they disbanded after one chaotic album cycle. Northern Eclipse. Northern Eclipse carved out a niche in the atmospheric post-rock scene, with lush compositions that felt like soundtracks to epic, otherworldly adventures. Their music had the power to transport listeners, until the lead singer opened his mouth. Critics panned his vocals as overly pretentious and disconnected from the band's sweeping instrumentals, likening them to bad slam poetry set to a gorgeous backing track. His flat delivery and lack of emotional depth turned what should have been mesmerizing songs into frustrating experiences. Fans begged for instrumental versions of their tracks, but the damage was done. Northern Eclipse dissolved, leaving behind an album that felt like a glimpse of brilliance that never fully materialized. Wildfire Suns. Wildfire Suns brought fiery southern rock energy to every note, with soaring guitar solos and stomping rhythms that demanded attention. But their lead singer was completely out of sync with the band's vibe. His robotic, overly polished vocals clashed with the raw, earthy spirit of their sound. Critics described his performances as soulless karaoke, and even the band's most devoted fans couldn't get past the dissonance. Despite their undeniable talent, Wildfire Suns couldn't recover from the mismatch, and their one album faded into obscurity as they disbanded shortly after. Neon Palms. Neon Palms emerged in the vibrant pop scene of the 80s with tropical, synth-heavy beats that seemed destined for success. However, their lead singer's mumbled vocals and poorly written lyrics turned their catchy sound into a source of unintentional comedy. Critics likened his singing to a man trying to talk over a blender, and live performances were marred by his lack of stage presence. Despite a devoted effort to rebrand, Neon Palms never overcame the backlash, and their brief career ended with a whimper rather than a bang. Thunder Harbor. This glam rock outfit had everything. The glitzy outfits, the explosive guitar solos, and the dramatic flair that defined the genre in the late 80s. Unfortunately, their lead singer didn't have the voice to match the spectacle. Known for his excessive vibrato and over-the-top vocal runs, he came across as more theatrical than authentic. Critics lambasted his performances as self-indulgent, and even die-hard fans admitted he was the weak link. After a failed arena tour, Thunder Harbor's momentum stalled, and they quietly faded into the background. Spectral Dawn. Spectral Dawn was a gothic metal band known for blending dark, orchestral arrangements with heavy riffs. But their lead singer lacked the emotional intensity to carry the genre's weight. His monotonous voice clashed with the haunting beauty of the band's music, leaving fans frustrated and critics unimpressed. Even attempts to replace him couldn't salvage their reputation, and the band dissolved after releasing only one poorly received album. Electric Tide. This surf rock band seemed poised to become a summer playlist staple with their upbeat, sunny sound. But their lead singer's mumbled, off-key vocals turned potential hits into disasters. Fans struggled to sing along because they couldn't understand the lyrics, and critics dubbed him the mumbling surfer. Despite an undeniable instrumental talent, Electric Tide never managed to ride the wave to success and disappeared after their debut album. Bands rely on synergy, and a weak link, especially a poorly suited lead singer, can ruin even the most talented groups. These stories remind us that great music requires more than technical skill. It demands the right chemistry and voice to bring it all together. What do you think of this list? Did we miss any bands that belong here? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Hollywood Secrets for more fascinating music and entertainment stories.